welcome to Sarah's Stamping Retreat. Today we're going to be creating a simple men's card using this colour block triangle stencil. I'm going to create it as a birthday card today, but you could obviously use it as Father's Day card, any kind of occasion that you want. And obviously where I've called it a men's card because I think people find it a bit more difficult to make cards for men. It's actually a really versatile card that is suitable for everyone really. So the stencil is just a really nice geometric. So I've got a 4 1/4 inch piece of white cardstock here, and I'm going to just place this on it, and I want my sentiment to go over this triangle. So I want this triangle to be slightly offset this way, but I want it to completely be on the card. So I'm just making sure that that's the case when I place it. And then I'm just going to tape it down with some of this paper tape. This is my scrapbook.com paper tape that I really love because it's just the right amount of tackiness for a lot of projects. Now I've just got it over some scrap paper so that it doesn't go all over my mat. And then I'm going to use my blue Altenew ink. So I have got Arctic, Persian blue, Caribbean sky and sapphire. So I'm going to use the Arctic first. I'm going to brush this all over my piece of card. And you can see it's a really light colour. I don't know how much you'll be able to pick up on the camera, how much it's going down, because it is quite pale. That's what I want, a nice subtle kind of background. And I will go over it a couple of times just to build up the colour a little bit, because I want it to be subtle, but I do want you to be able to see it. And then what I want to do is just isolate this triangle here. And I'm just doing this so that the colour doesn't bleed over to where I don't want it. So I've isolated the triangle, and then I'm going to isolate each of the pieces within the triangle as well. So I'm using quite a lot of paper tape here, but I shall use this again for die cutting so it won't go to waste afterwards. So then I'm going to use the Caribbean sky for this first bit. And then I can take off these two pieces. And isolate this piece now. So I'm going to use the Persian blue for this next bit. And you'll notice that I'm going from lightest to darkest colours, and that way I can use the same brush because it's not going to affect the ink pads. And then I'm just going to isolate this bottom piece. And I'm going to use the sapphire for the bottom. And then I can take off my mask as well. You can see it's created this nice pattern with this isolated blue triangle. So I'm going to move that to the side for a minute. And then I've got some Night of Navy cardstock from Stampin' Up. I've got my Versamark ink pad. And then I'm going to take this Happy Birthday, and that is from this birthday greeting set from Altenew. And I'm just going to heat emboss this Happy Birthday in white. So I'm using my Versamark ink to stamp it. And then I've got my Altenew Crisp embossing powder in pure white. I just stamped that again because can you see where I stamped that? I was maybe a little bit heavy-handed with it. It's just slightly wider lines, and this one's a little bit clearer where I've just pushed down really lightly, because you don't have to be heavy-handed with your stamps. So I had to heat that up off the camera today because I'm using all my plugs for other things. But if you are new to crafting and you've never seen heat embossing before and you want to see how it's done, then I've got a beginner's guide to heat embossing, which I will link below. But now I'm just going to cut this out. So while I just cut this out, I'm just going to mention, because I was saying before about pressing too hard, and so I got like those thicker lines. Two of the things that I see less experienced stampers do in my classes time and time again with stamping is either they press too hard on the ink pen when they're applying their ink, and you'll notice that when I stamp I tend to tap it rather than pressing it, and that often makes the ink go onto the edge of the block or a part of the stamp that you don't really want it to get onto, and so that makes it hard to get a nice impression. And the other thing is pressing too hard when they actually stamp it on the paper, and you sometimes then get a bit of a blotchy line. And I just thought that I would mention those two things, because if you're quite new to stamping and you're having problems getting a nice impression, just try those two things. Press less hard on the ink and press less hard on the paper, because those are usually the problems when people are not getting a nice impression in my classes. So there's that cut out. Then I'm going to bring this in. I've got a 5" by 5" white card blank. I've got a 4.5" square piece of Night of Navy Stampin' Up cardstock, and then this will go on the top. And actually I feel like maybe I don't want a white card blank, but I want one to match these colours, so I might just use this lighter colour, that's the Caribbean Sky, and just go around the edge of my card blank. I'm just going to get all this off on here, because this is obviously going to get covered up by the by this stuff. So I could just use that as a piece of scrap card and just get the rest of the ink off here so that I don't ruin my Caribbean Sky with that dark ink. And then I'm just going to, let's bring in my piece of scrap paper, and then I can just rub that around the outside. So it looks a bit of a hot mess as it is, but I think when you add these layers on, it just lifts the card a bit, and I really like that now. So let's just glue my layers together. And then I'm just going to cut this bit of foam tape up the middle so that it's the right width for my happy birthday. I'll just set that on there. So then we've got a really nice simple card. It's quick to create, and you can always create it as in your recipient's favourite colours. I really hope that you enjoyed today's project. If you did, I'd appreciate you clicking like below, and you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future projects. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got new videos available. All of the products that I've used today for today's card are listed in the description below. And there's also a link to my blog where you can find a product list with pictures, which makes it a little bit easier to use. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.